There comes a moment, quiet, invisible, deadly. Not an explosion, not chaos, but a slow fade. You wake up and realize the fire is gone, the hunger missing, the edge you once had blunted. You're still breathing, still moving, but something deep inside isn't. This isn't collapse the world sees. This is erosion no one talks about. And that's more dangerous than failure, because failure screams, collapse whispers. Most people never rebuild, not because they can't, but because they never admit the silent collapse even happened. They call it burnout. They blame the job, the relationship, the world. But here's the truth: identity decays when you stop checking your foundation. Neuroscience tells us your brain physically rewires based on repeated thought patterns. You can literally build a different version of yourself, structurally, biologically. But if you're not intentional, that version becomes weaker, smaller, more reactive. That's the erosion. This video is about the rebuild, not self-help fluff, not surface-level tricks, real grounded discipline, the kind that reshapes your biology, the kind that rewrites your identity. You'll learn why isolation is a strategy, not a sentence, why breaking routines is more powerful than adding new ones, why rebuilding isn't self-improvement, it's self-replacement. And most importantly, why the quiet moments, the ones nobody sees, determine everything. This isn't about bouncing back. It's about coming back unrecognizable, stronger, clearer, unshakable. Welcome to Unstoppable Ascent. If you're ready to burn the old script and build the real you, subscribe. Let's begin. Silence can lie. You go through the motions. You laugh when expected. You say, "I'm good," because it's easier than explaining the ache you don't understand yourself. But deep down, something's cracked. Something's off. This is the part no one wants to face, the ruins. Not the dramatic breakdown, but the quiet damage left unchecked for too long. The anxiety you normalized. The anger that settled into your bones. The exhaustion that doesn't go away with rest. Mentally, you're scattered. Emotionally numb or volatile. Physically, you feel heavier, slower, less alive. But here's the danger. It doesn't look like ruin. It looks like routine. You still show up. You still function. You still meet expectations. That's how the damage hides behind discipline, behind responsibility, behind a mask that says, "I'm fine." But deep inside, you know. You feel the erosion every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you shrink from a challenge, every time you choose comfort over courage. The first step to rebuilding is brutal. It's standing still long enough to take inventory, to admit where you've drifted, to stop lying to yourself just to keep moving. There's no healing without honesty, no transformation without truth. You can't fix what you won't face. You can't rise until you recognize what collapsed. Denial is seductive. It whispers that you're just tired, that it'll pass, that tomorrow you'll feel better. But tomorrow never comes for the version of you that keeps pretending. The only way forward starts here, in the ruins. Eyes open, no filters, no lies, just truth, raw, heavy, and necessary. Rebuilding starts when excuses end. Not when you feel ready. Not when the timing is perfect. Not when someone finally sees your worth. The shift happens the moment you stop pointing outward and start looking inward. Radical ownership is not about shame. It's not about blaming yourself for every twist of fate or every scar life gave you. It's about drawing a line in the dirt and saying, "From this point forward, my life is mine." That means no more rescue fantasies. No more hoping something will swoop in and lift you out of your mess. No mentor, no partner, no job offer, no motivation video is coming to save you. That's the hard truth. And it's also the most powerful one. Because the moment you stop waiting, you start building. You stop making excuses for who you are and start crafting who you will become. It's not about what broke you. It's about who you decide to be, even with the damage, even with the setbacks, even with the silence that followed. You want strength? Stop outsourcing your struggle. You want clarity? Stop giving away your decisions. Own the missed chances. Own the wasted time. Own the patterns that keep repeating because you keep allowing them. The mind rebels against this at first. It wants to say, "But you don't know my story." And that's true. But here's what I do know. Someone out there had it worse and built something greater. Not because it was fair, but because they took full control of their response. That's the difference. Not luck, not background, not talent. Ownership, quiet, brutal, freeing. Once you choose it, there's no going back. You become dangerous, not to others, but to the version of yourself that almost made peace with staying broken. You cannot hear your inner voice in the noise of the world. And make no mistake, the world is loud. Everyone's speaking, posting, performing, telling you who you should be, how you should live, what you should chase. The noise is constant, and over time it drowns out the only voice that actually matters, your own. That's why isolation isn't punishment, it's precision. When the world feels too heavy, when your direction feels uncertain, the answer isn't always action, it's silence. Not to escape, but to reset, to strip away the distractions and confront the one person you've been avoiding, yourself. This kind of solitude isn't weakness, it's not sadness, it's strategy. Step back, and the patterns become clear. Step back, and the truth stops hiding. You begin to notice how many of your choices were reactions, how many of your dreams were borrowed, how much of your identity was shaped to survive, not to live. In the quiet, there's no applause, no validation, no likes, no feedback, just you. And that can be terrifying. But it's also where the real work begins. You stop performing. You start listening. You hear the fears that rule you, the dreams you buried, the lies you told yourself just to keep going. And slowly, something else emerges. Clarity. Still, sharp, uncompromised. You remember who you were before the world convinced you to forget. Strategic isolation is a sacred place, a forge, a mirror. It breaks down the noise so you can rebuild from truth. But few choose it because silence forces confrontation. No distractions, no masks, just the raw material of your future waiting to be shaped by someone finally willing to be alone long enough to hear what their life has been trying to say. Rebuilding requires demolition first. You can't build a cathedral on top of a crumbling shack. You don't paint over rotting walls and call it new. Yet that's exactly what most people do with their lives. They stack new goals on top of old dysfunction, add motivation to broken routines, try to run faster without checking the weight they're dragging behind them. The truth, some of what's in your life right now cannot come with you. There are habits that feel harmless, but they drain you. Routines that look productive, but keep you busy instead of focused. Relationships that seem familiar, but keep you anchored to an outdated version of yourself. You want to rise? Then audit ruthlessly. Every detail counts. How you start your morning, what you feed your mind, who you text when you're tired, what you tolerate when no one's watching. Nothing is neutral. Every choice either reinforces your old identity or clears space for your new one. This process isn't clean, it's messy, it's painful. You'll question your past. You'll feel guilt when you let people go. You'll feel fear when you strip away distractions that once gave you comfort. But that discomfort, it's part of the cleansing. You're not just letting go of habits. You're letting go of who you were when you needed them. That version of you did what they had to do. But now, you're building something stronger, something sharper. And to get there, you have to clear the rubble. Tear down the walls built out of fear, convenience, and survival. Only then can you lay a foundation rooted in intention. There's no shortcut. There's no bypass. Just the brutal, necessary honesty of asking what in my life exists only because I've never questioned it. Then having the courage to answer and the discipline to act. Without a blueprint, you're just reacting. Life becomes a loop. Same thoughts, same choices, same outcomes, just dressed in new distractions. You wake up and move, but there's no direction. You chase goals, but they're not rooted in anything real. And that's how most people drift, busy but blind. Rebuilding yourself requires something precise. It requires design, intent, blueprint. You don't stumble into your future. You build it brick by brick, standard by standard. That begins with a question most never ask. Who do you want to become? Not what do you want to have? Not what do you want to achieve? Who do you want to be? Answering that changes everything. Because once identity becomes the target, your actions take shape around it. Now you define your values. Not the ones society handed you. Not the ones you inherited. The ones you choose. Discipline, truth, courage, loyalty, stillness. Whatever holds weight in your soul, lock it in. Next, you draw your lines, the non-negotiables. What you won't tolerate from others. What you won't tolerate from yourself. Without them, pressure will always rewrite your code. You'll bend to fit the room. You'll shrink to avoid conflict. But when your standards are set, you stop chasing peace. You bring it. Then, Build systems to reinforce it. Routines that align. Habits that reflect. Environments that support. Every part of your life should echo the identity you're creating. If it doesn't, strip it out. This isn't fantasy, it's architecture. You're not hoping for change, you're engineering it. And when the storm hits, as it always will, you won't fall apart. Because you didn't build your life on emotion. You built it on principle, on design, on a blueprint you wrote in silence and reinforced in practice. Now the world doesn't decide who you are. You do. Brick by brick, day by day. That's how you rebuild. That's how you rise. Not in one grand moment, not with one massive leap, with small deliberate acts that look like nothing to the world but mean everything to the future you're building. You see, most people wait for motivation. They wait for the fire to hit. The problem? Fire fades, emotion lies, and when the high wears off, discipline is the only thing left standing. Discipline is different. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel, it asks who you said you'd be. And it begins in the smallest places. You wake up and make your bed, not because it changes the world, but because it reminds you that you're in control. You sit in silence before the chaos hits, not because it's easy, but because it builds presence. You show up to the workout, the journal, the reading, the planning, even when you don't want to, especially then, because that's where the identity shift happens. Micro habits, not flashy, not loud, but sharp, controlled, repeatable. A single rep today beats 100 reps never started. One clean decision made daily builds more strength than 1,000 emotional outbursts of effort. Because this isn't about extremes, it's about consistency, it's about momentum. You want to change your life? Shrink the battlefield. Win the next 5 minutes, then win the next 5 after that. The results you want don't live in some distant tomorrow. They live in your choices right now, repeated without applause. This is the slow path, but it's also the permanent one. You're not chasing a moment, you're laying a foundation. Quiet, steady, unbreakable. Because the strongest structure isn't built with noise, it's built with rhythm, with resolve, with bricks laid in silence, until the wall stands tall and the world finally notices. Emotional resilience is built like muscle, through stress, rest, repeat. You don't wake up with it. You don't read it in a book. You earn it, you build it, under pressure, in discomfort, through moments that test everything in you and ask, will you break or will you adapt? Mental toughness isn't a gift, it's a decision, made again and again, to lean into the resistance instead of run from it. And that starts by reframing pain, not as punishment, but as information. Pain isn't always a sign to stop. Sometimes it's a signal that something inside you is waking up, stretching, growing. That shift in mindset changes everything. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? You stop dodging difficulty and begin to pursue it, deliberately, strategically, not recklessly, but with purpose. You take cold showers, not for trend, but to train discomfort. You say no to distraction, not for perfection, but to sharpen control. You sit with your thoughts, your fear, your urges, not to conquer them instantly, but to prove you won't run. This is how your threshold expands. You do the hard thing, not because it's dramatic, but because it's necessary. Because you know every time you choose the harder path, you become more capable, more grounded. But just like the body, toughness requires balance. You stress the system, then recover. You push your edge, then reflect. Rest isn't weakness, it's reinforcement. It's where the growth sinks in. Over time, you stop fearing difficulty. You start craving it. Because you've learned that every challenge is a mirror. It shows you who you are and who you still have the power to become. That's not just toughness. That's transformation, earned, not given. Protect your mental ecosystem. Because everything you consume, every word, every image, every voice shapes you. Not instantly, but slowly, subtly, daily. The mind is soil. Whatever you plant, it grows. So the question is, what have you been watering? You say you want to change. You say you want clarity, strength, focus. But look at your inputs. Look at what you let in when no one's watching. The endless scroll, the gossip masked as connection, the noise disguised as entertainment. You don't rise while feeding yourself the same distractions that numbed your past. If you want to rebuild, the inputs must evolve. That means new books, not just for knowledge, but for new wiring. Words that challenge you, concepts that stretch you, stories that remind you who you could be if you stopped settling. That means better conversations, not louder, not more frequent. Better conversations with people who make you uncomfortable in the right ways. People who don't flatter you. They sharpen you. They call out your patterns. They push you to match your potential, not your excuses. That means cleaner environments, internally and externally. Spaces that are still, spaces that breathe. Because clutter is not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental. When your surroundings are chaotic, your mind follows. You don't have to cut everything overnight, but you do need to audit, with brutal honesty. What are you feeding your mind when you're tired? What voices dominate your day? What spaces do you escape to? And what do they cost you? The future version of you doesn't rise from willpower alone. It rises from alignment. And alignment starts with inputs. If you want to change what's coming out of your life, you've got to change what's going in, constantly, carefully, without apology. Say I am, not I want to be. Because the mind obeys identity, not intention, not desire. Identity, whatever you believe yourself to be, you will act in alignment with it, even if it's killing you. That's why self-improvement alone is not enough. You don't need tweaks. You don't need adjustments. You need replacement. You're not here to polish the old version of you. You're here to replace it entirely. That old self, the one built in survival, the one shaped by fear, by validation, by the need to be liked more than the need to be real. That version of you was necessary once, but it's no longer invited to where you're going. And here's the truth most won't tell you. You cannot outperform your identity. You can try, you can hustle, grind, pretend. But if deep down you still see yourself as broken, weak, uncertain, you will sabotage everything that doesn't match that image. So the shift begins with declaration, not fantasy declaration. You speak the new version before you feel it. You walk like it, talk like it, think like it. You let go of the false humility that says, I'm trying. No, you are. Right now. Because behavior is downstream from identity. Change who you are, and what you do changes on its own. Discipline becomes natural. Boundaries become normal. Excellence becomes expected. Not because you forced it, but because it matches who you believe you are. This is the deepest work. Not in the body, not in the schedule, in the mirror. You don't rise by fixing the old story. You rise by writing a new one. Word by word, brick by brick. I am not someday, not almost, now. And once you claim it, the world starts to respond. Not to your effort, but to your essence. Rebuilding isn't for validation, it's for freedom. You're not doing this to impress. You're not doing it to be seen. You're doing it to be free. Free from the noise, free from the patterns, free from the version of you that kept shrinking to fit rooms that were never built for your truth. And that kind of growth, it's fragile in the beginning. Not weak, fragile. Like a seed under the soil, alive but unseen. You start changing your habits, changing your thoughts, changing your identity. But no one sees it yet. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Because if you expose the roots too early, they die. Too many people broadcast the process while it's still forming. They post their goals. They announce their routines. They reach for applause before the structure is ready, and then wonder why it all falls apart when the pressure hits. Let your results make the noise. Build in private. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting. That quiet season is sacred. It's where your new identity gets tested without performance. It's where you fail without spectacle. It's where the transformation gets real. In silence, the ego fades. The need to prove disappears. What's left is the work, raw, repetitive, relentless. No filters, no spotlight, just the daily decision to rise again. And then one day, you walk in a room and people notice something different. They see the calm, the power, the focus, not because you told them, but because you became it. That's the kind of transformation that lasts. The kind that doesn't beg to be seen because it already knows what it is. That's the freedom you're building, quietly, brick by brick, unshakable, unapologetic, unstoppable. You are not starting over. You're starting wiser. You carry the lessons, the bruises, the truth, not as weight, but as tools. This isn't the end of who you were. It's the evolution, the sharpening, The moment where you stop running from the fire and start using it to forge something new. You're not patching cracks anymore. You're laying a new foundation, thought by thought, standard by standard, not reacting to life, but designing it, choosing who you will be, not just surviving who you've been. And that takes courage. Because most won't do it. Most will stay comfortable, familiar, small, but you're not most. You're not here to exist. You're here to build, to rise, to become on purpose. This is the beginning. If this message stirred something in you like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to our channel, Unstoppable Ascent, where we speak to the part of you the world can't see, but the part that's ready to rise. Keep building, in silence, with fire. We'll be right here.